If you're seeing this video in the first few days of it being published, please look down in the video description for ways that you can help with the situation at Bell Bowl Prairie. We only have a few days left to make meaningful change for this location, and we can use all the help we can get. In a previous video, I discussed some of the different terms we can use to label areas of protected ecosystems, and some of the differences between those designations. But before we can designate a natural area as protected in some way, we have to have that area. So today, let's explore the process of conservation while focusing on one very immediate case study. I live in the U.S. state of Illinois, which is also known as the Prairie State, since historically a majority of the land here was covered in tallgrass prairie. However, due to European settlement, and specifically due to conventional row crop agriculture, less than 0.1% of the original prairie remains in the state today. The prairie that does remain is mostly in tiny fragments scattered all over, and many of these fragments represent very specific kinds of prairie.
So Bell Bowl is an example of a very rare prairie called gravel prairies.
That's Anna Kozik, a PhD student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and a science artist. She was awesome enough to speak with me about the conservation situation of one specific prairie fragment in Illinois that is, at the time of filming, in serious trouble. Bell Bowl Prairie is located in Rockford, Illinois, adjacent to the Rockford Airport. It's part of the ancestral lands of the Kickapoo, Peoria, Sauk, Muskogee, Potawatomi, Miamia, Ho-Chunk, and Oceti-Sakowin peoples, all of whom were removed from the land by European and American settlers, and the airport is about to begin construction that will destroy this small piece of prairie.
The prairie will be turned into a parking lot, a road, and a detention pond. And so none of those things are things that need to be located on top of this prairie. There's plenty of land in the area. Within the Bell Bowl Prairie group, they have developed some alternative theoretical designs where you can have the same amount of tarmac, the same amount of parking, the same amount of airplanes and all of that if you just leave this buffer area around the prairie.
Although we're specifically looking at Bell Bowl Prairie today, the situation is very similar to the sorts of issues conservationists face all the time. So many ecosystems in our world are threatened or endangered because some people think the land would be better used as something other than a natural area. And it's really difficult for us to balance the immediate needs and wants of people against the needs of the earth, its systems, and our long-term survival. So what is Bell Bowl Prairie, and why has conserving it become such a struggle? Like other prairie remnants, or areas of historical prairie that were never plowed under for agriculture, Bell Bowl is a hillside that would have been difficult to farm, so it was left alone for a really long time. It's also shaped somewhat like an amphitheater, so over the past 200 years or so, it was used as a place for speeches, parades, a military base, and other culturally important uses. In the 1970s, the Natural Lands Institute marked Bell Bowl as an important piece of land and worked with the Rockford Airport on an informal agreement to protect it. For a long time, the airport included the beautiful historic prairie on their website and promotional materials, but recently those details have been removed as plans for construction have moved forward and priorities have shifted.
So because Bell Bowl Prairie is technically listed as an INAI, or Illinois Natural Area Inventory site, there are one or two more hoops they have to jump through in order to destroy this prairie. But technically speaking, but there is no This is the one thing that has hit me so hard the more I've looked into this. There is no legal protection for endangered or threatened plants in Illinois. Like, if you go through the actual laws, they say you can't kill state or federal endangered animals, and you can't destroy federally endangered plants. That's it. Not federally threatened, not state threatened or state endangered. And so it's like this site holds at least 3 or 4 species that are 100% state endangered plants. And that's nice. You have to formally record it, but otherwise the landowner can just be like, bye. It's inconvenient. I don't want it.
We've talked before about how species are listed as endangered, so you know that there are some interesting biases and technicalities that make this system imperfect. And you can see those biases perpetuated in moments like this, where there are more strict legal protections for endangered animals than there are for endangered plants, even though plants serve as the foundation for every terrestrial ecosystem. So how can we save Bell Bowl and conserve it for the future? The best option seems to be riding on a single endangered animal species, the rusty-patched bumblebee. Endangered animal species often serve as what we call umbrella species, which basically means protecting them involves indirectly protecting a bunch of other animal and plant species that happen to exist in the same habitats. But since species listings and land conservation are determined by people, they are subject to changes brought about by political leaders. And a recent presidential administration did quite a bit to make conservation more difficult.
Specifically, they weakened the strength of habitat protections. So while you can't walk up to a rusty patch bumblebee and crush it between your fingers, legally you can destroy land that they live on. On November 1st, which is coming up very soon, the rusty patch bumblebee should be done foraging before winter. And so they gave the bumblebees, because they were found on site, they are allowed to finish eating before they go to bed for winter, and then the site will be destroyed. What this neglects to mention or acknowledge is the fact that they will be going to sleep in the prairie. They will be burrowing underground for the winter, and the bumblebees that we couldn't disturb while they were eating and flying around, we can kill when they're asleep.
Yeah, you heard that correctly. The airport couldn't begin construction during the summer because they might have hurt bees flying around in the air. But as soon as the rusty-patched queens are hibernating a few centimeters underground for the winter, everything is good to go. This is a super twisted version of out of sight, out of mind. Okay, so if protecting an endangered pollinator species only served as a delay to the destruction process, is there another argument we could use to conserve Bell Bowl? Like Liz Anna said, Bell Bowl is a representative of a super rare kind of prairie.
We might have one or two other locations within the state for these plant communities, but when you're down to just like 3 inbred groups of downy gentians, like they aren't long for this world.
So Bell Bowl is of intense conservation value because it holds a segment of genetic diversity for several native plant species. Keeping species genetically diverse is incredibly important to their long-term survival, but all over the world, the genetic diversity of wild species is declining due to the loss of populations like what's about to happen at Bell Bowl. And as go the plants, so go all the animals that rely on them, like the bumblebees. It's one big, awful cascade. Liz Anna told me that the community group fighting to save Bell Bowl Prairie has been able to use the Freedom of Information Act to gain access to information about plans by the Illinois Department of Natural Resources concerning the plants at Bell Bowl. We understand that land conservation can be a contentious issue, but it's really frustrating when state and federal organizations and the airport authority won't be transparent about their plans or answer phone calls. There's a limited amount of time left to save the prairie, so every lost moment counts. What the IDNR appears to be planning, as far as the community group can tell, is a sort of sliding scale of successful conservation. At one end, we have the ideal, where Bell Bowl is not destroyed and the airport construction is redesigned. But assuming the prairie is about to be destroyed, there may be plans for someone to go in and remove individual plants, or at least collect seeds from Bell Bowl, and then plant them in another location. This solution would, in theory, protect at least some of the genetic diversity present at Bell Bowl, but rescuing plants or planting seeds elsewhere still requires an area of protected land, which, as we've already established, is a severely limited resource. There are also no guarantees that rescued plants would survive being transplanted, or that collected seeds would sprout in their new home. So the real point I wanted to emphasize today is that conservation and species protection are human constructs, so they're subject to human opinions, priorities, and actions. Bell Bowl Prairie is almost certainly about to be destroyed, and it may be gone by the time you're watching this video. What might save Bell Bowl, though, are human opinions, priorities, and actions. The community group Liz Anna belongs to has been fighting hard for a really long time to try to protect Bell Bowl, and you can help. Please take a look down in the video description, muster up the courage to bypass your phone anxiety, and make some calls. And even if it is too late for Bell Bowl, there are countless other similar conservation issues out there right now that could use your help as well. It's also worth saying that working on conservation issues can be incredibly depressing. It's hurtful to see something you love and value being disregarded and destroyed by people with other priorities, especially when you know how important that thing is to our long-term survival as a planetary community.
I want all of them to be okay. And that's, the worst part is like knowing that the rusty patch, it's not about saving one individual bee or even one individual bee species. It's about the ecosystem that sustains them being protected because we choose to save this bee. And the sort of spiral out effects of endangered species protections if your freaking state enforces them. It's fine. It's fine. I'm just mad about the plants.
I'm mad too. Are you mad? Please take just a few minutes to take action to help save Bell Bowl Prairie. I'd love to hear what you've done to help, or to hear about your favorite conservation causes down in the comments. If you liked this video, don't forget to like it. If you didn't like this video, please share it with someone who would. And if you'd like to support the Roving Naturalist, remember to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification icon. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.